One of the questions we get asked the very most is, do you have a therapist you can recommend for me? And while we wish that we knew of therapists in every single place, in every single part of the country, we don't. So what do we tell them instead, Mel?
We say check out BetterHelp because it's online, it's at a reasonable price, and you can be matched with a therapist within 24 hours. I've also used them and they have been great. And if you don't like your therapist, guess what? Click, and get a new one.
Absolutely. It's so hard when you have an in-person therapist, if you're not clicking with them, to cut them off and get a new one. So that's not an issue with BetterHelp. So we always tell people to try BetterHelp. And if you use our promo code, which is
trybetterhelp.com/WWDN,
you get 10% off your first month.
Go ahead and try it out. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN. And you know what? I'm a big fan of doing therapy where you don't have to wear pants, but nobody knows about it.
Are you wearing pants right now, Mel?
I'll see you later. Bye. That's trybetterhelp.com/WWDN.
Okay, Mel, I need to tell you how this interview came about.
Okay.
Okay. Once upon a time, I had to go to a training for a bike thing. And of course, I was late because it was on a Saturday and all my kids are home. So I went scooching in there, I don't know how late, and just kind of flung myself into it while it was already going. So the person's teaching, the people are teaching, we're doing our thing. We're about, I don't know, 7/8 of the way done. And the teacher says something to the effect of, blah, 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 my dead husband. And then my ears went boing because that's what they do. And so after a minute, I was like, you got to tell me more. And I think you probably told everybody that story at the beginning of the class. Yes?
Yeah, a condensed version.
Okay. At least because you said it so casually that I was like, they had to have known already, because otherwise there would have been a bigger reaction in the room that there was not. So anyway, I was like, oh, I got to find this out. So then I went and found her and I was like, tell me about this. I need to know. And she was probably like, you're a crazy person. I was like, yes, absolutely. Anyway, and then afterwards I stalked her and found her and told her to come be on the podcast. The end. That's the whole story.
We're done. Let's all take a nap.
Yeah.
Tell us your name.
Yeah. Okay. Well, my name's Jen Lundberg, and I am the crazy teacher that you're talking about.
Yes. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Excellent. All right. Well, I am in healthcare. I've been a nurse for 2000, probably about 18, 19, 20 years, someplace right in there. But I've been in probably close to 20, actually. Ooh, it is. It's 20 this year. Former athletic trainer, worked in orthopedic nursing, where I've been in the emergency departments slash OR surgical services for the other 10 years together, right? So we've had a busy run of years. Other than that, we live in wonderful Park City. So me and my husband, we moved here in 2011, and we came here from Colorado. And we lived in the part of Colorado that we had to travel everywhere to go have fun. So my kids were on boats rafting sub 1 year. So they were babies, and we would go to Ruby Horse Thief. We'd come to Fruta, to Moab to go mountain biking, and we'd do like a combination of trips. So that's kind of how we ended up in Park City. My husband was an mechanical engineer working for a company out of Pueblo, Colorado, and he pitched to his higher ups that he wanted to work remote. And we wanted to move either to here, Steamboat, or Jackson Hole. And my little boy was just about 9 months old. We were camping in Moab, Fruita actually area. We were going to go on a rafting trip, and it was raining and snowing. And so we're like, ooh, let's bag this and go check out Park City. So we drove up to Park City, and it was like April. The weather was snowy. There was still a bunch of snow on the ground, but there was so many people at the parks playing.
Okay, you guys go back to that time, back to when it was just fun all the time and no hard stuff.
Yeah, we were, as you can see, all the pictures that I sent you guys, had like helmets or life jackets and boats in them,
Or
right?
both.
Yeah, exactly. And we did plenty of those multiple multi-day trips, multi-sporting trips, where we would come and rent a garage and put our raft in, and then we'd have our bikes, and then we'd go biking for a bit. So it was kind of funny listening to some of your other podcasts. We were, in our thirds, I was early 30s. My husband was late 29-ish when we met. We started dating and it kind of progressed quickly. And, both we found something that we fit. And ironically, he, me and my siblings, my brothers were snowboarding at Crested Butte or Copper, something like that in Colorado, the same weekend that my husband and his brothers had gone snowboarding slash skiing there too. And he ended up at the same orthopedic surgeon's office where I worked. And this was our introduction meeting. And so it was great because then, like, fast forward a couple years later, I had been taking care of my sick mom who had cancer and subsequently passed away, like in 2003. Anyway, so we had met 4 years earlier because he was a patient of the doctor I worked for, and we found each other on Match.com.
Oh,
And as soon as I seen him, I was like, it all came back. One of my rad texts was like, "Oh my God, is he single? You need to get together with that guy." And so I seen him again and I was like, "Oh wow." So I sent him a message and I'm like, "Yeah, we've met before." And so we started talking. And then our first date was he had two labs, I had two labs. We went for this like 5 mile run. And that's where it started.
you were like, hey, you're that gnarly humerus fracture that we treated.
Yeah, I wish I could have given him that much even. He only had an AC separation. For the
Oh.
love of all is holy.
Did the dogs get along? And what were the dogs' names and ages? It's very important.
It is. All of their names were I had Kai, who was a yellow lab. I bred her twice, so I kept one of her boys, and his name was Coda. He was a black lab. And then he had two yellow labs as well, Resner and Stout. And Resner is after the singer.
Trent Reznor.
Yep, exactly. Ironically, my boy's name is William Trenton Lundberg.
Wow, he really loved him some Reznor.
So yeah, and so I'd like to say we, got married. He did. We got married and lived happily ever after for a bit. So we kept all the dogs until my boy was born, and then he gave one of his dogs away. I gave one of my dogs away, but they stayed in the family to one of my husband's brothers.
Oh,
So they had all a long, happy life, and we've seen each other for a while throughout those years. So those were the happy, wonderful times, watching our kids grow up and, doing all the fun things that, we did. We traveled lots of places, river rafted, we, biked in lots of places, took the kids as many places as we could, camped here and there, and had a good time.
what's this husband of yours name? Does he have a name?
Um, he does actually.
I love that we knew all the dogs' names before the human name.
His- my husband's name was Will.
Is it Will with one L, by the
It
way?
totally is. You know what? He always,
Oh.
the rappers like Will I Am, you know
Hmm.
what? So yeah, just one L.
He wasn't a rapper though. He was a mechanical
He
engineer,
was
so
a
he didn't
white,
just
he was a
deserve it.
mechanical engineer with some tendencies to want to be a rapper.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Tell us what happened to Will, not the rapper.
Okay. So our family dynamics changed on July the 2nd. I had transitioned from the emergency department to the operating room the year before in 2020. And as usual, Friday afternoon, looking forward to the weekend. And as manager, you always have like people trying to ask you something right before you leave. So I was running a little later than I wanted to that day. My husband, left the kids home, and I didn't know how he was planning on meeting me or whatever. But every now and then we would either bike after work on Fridays or just meet by ourselves and hang out with ourselves and let the kids do their thing at the house. And so that afternoon, I was getting ready to leave, and I'd walked down the stairwell in the back hall of the hospital to get my e-bike. And I go to climb on and my phone rings, and it was the Summit County Sheriff's Office on my husband's phone. So I thought it was my husband, and I'm like, "Hey, and they're like, "Yeah, is this Jen Lundberg?" And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, and they're like, this is Summit County Sheriff's Department, and we have found your husband. He was involved in an accident. And so, I'm trying to keep it cool, being an ER nurse. I'm like, okay. So thinking that maybe he went and biked. And he did that morning, but that wasn't the situation. So they're like, yeah, no, I was like, well, where's he at? And I was like, because if he needs to go to the hospital, then, I'm Intermountain and we can take him down to Intermountain at Murray. And they're like, yeah, no, he is in a helicopter to the University of Utah. And you know how you talked about the quacks? There's a lot of that word out explicitives at right away.
Would you like to say it? Because I'll put them in. What did you say, Jen? Just do it.
I was like, what the and are you kidding? And oh, I'm on my way.
That about sums it up.
It does really. And so I was like, okay, I'll be there in a few minutes. So I hauled ass and we're pretty close. We're about probably 3 miles from the hospital to my house. And so I jumped on the e-bike and rode to the place where I picked up his skateboard, the electric skateboard, his phone, his sunglasses, his baseball cap.
Hey guys, just checking in and want to say if you are enjoying this podcast,
And you want to see it keep going, maybe it's helped you through your widowhood journey and you think that it might help others on their widowhood journey, you can support that cause by joining our Patreon.
some of the things that you get as a Patreon beneficiary are ad-free episodes, so you don't have to hear ads like this.
You also get exclusive content, and at a certain level, you might also get an exclusive t-shirt. You can only get that place.
That is true. It's pretty cool. There are 4 different tiers available, so check it out. It's patreon.com/WWDN.
And as an extra bonus, very often you get your names read by one of my kids, and they will do a terrible job with the pronunciation. And that's like a bonus, I think.
I think it's kind of the best. I would much rather hear somebody butcher my name than say it correctly.
A child butcher it than an adult do it correctly. Yep. So go to patreon.com/WWDN to keep our podcast going and support the widowed cause.
Yes! Thanks, guys! Back to our regularly scheduled program.
Uh-oh.
His not helmet, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, my husband didn't put on a helmet that day. Yeah, and which is ironic because go back to those pictures that I sent you, pretty much all helmets on our heads, right? And so he was found down by some dude but he was a quarter mile away from our house. That's about it. Maybe a half a mile away from our house at the tops. So it just so happened that whoever the initial person was, this is July the 2nd, Friday afternoon, and it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's warm outside. The rail trails are generally busy. He was found pretty quick, but as EMS got there, like one of my neighbors who recognized him was like, "Oh my God, I know whose husband this is." And so I guess that was about the time that they grabbed his phone and was like, "Emergency, boom," and called me. So by the time I came home, I walked in the door and I was like, "Hey kids," my kids were like 13 and 10. I was like, "Hey, can you help me put together a timeline really quick? I'm trying to figure out when your daddy left. And by the way, guys, I need you to grab your telephones. I need to grab your laptops. It's going to be a long day." And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "Let's get in the car and let's talk about it on the way down." And so, as a nurse, obviously I talked about everything, the good, bad, and the ugly. And I was like, maybe you just got a little concussion, and sometimes those can be pretty gnarly, and they might want to keep him overnight. And Then, of course, I went to the next level, and I was like, but sometimes you can have an injury in your brain, and you might need to go to the OR to take a piece of your skull off to let that swelling kind of. And I was like, let's talk about that later, okay?
Yeah, because you don't know yet. You're just going off of like you have so little information.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then we stopped talking, but my kids' brains were very well like rolling and thinking. And even after the fact and after the things that happened with their dad happened, they were traumatized at certain spots. Like they know, they're like, Mom, we were here on Foothill Drive when you told me this or that. So amazing how their little brains worked. So we got down there, and the cool thing is because I was in the emergency department, I had one of my critical care techs who worked at the University of Utah. So I like dialed him up really quick, and I'm like, dude, Walker, his name was. I was like, Walker, are you working today? And he's like, no. And I was like, well, here's the deal. Will got into a electric skateboard accident, and he is on a helicopter coming down there. So can you help me out? And so he lined up a social worker on the backside so that as soon as we got there, she took the kids and me, and she entertained them while mommy went back to deal with what I dealt with. So yeah, which was interesting to see, knowing like I've seen both sides of it now, right? So it is intense because I've seen so many in my situation or you guys' situations, right? And I see the faces of when you leave too, right? And so it was a very interesting perspective because when I got there, his room in we like to call it trauma bay because that was where all of your resources are. That's because the patient was so critical that they needed a lot of hands. So they put you in big rooms so that all of the, things that need to be dealt with, if they need to be intubated, if they need to have, be stripped really quick and taken off quickly to CAT scan, just resources, it offers a bigger area. And so when I walked in, that room was empty. There was some poor like resident sitting there on a chair, and I'm pretty sure he didn't even want to look at me. So
Oh,
I was like, "Hey, excuse me, do you know where this patient is?" And he's like, yeah." And so just as he didn't answer me, I seen what kind of a mess perspective wise from nursing that trauma bay where my husband was. And just then doors open and it was the flight crew that walked by. And I was like, hey, gentlemen, did you just drop off this patient right
where
here?
is he?
Yeah, I was like, I was like, how did he do in the air? I
Oh,
want to know how he did. And they were like, he had a blown pupil, he was vomiting, we had to quickly intubate him. And I was like, huh, okay, that's not good. And then another set of doors open, and it's like 15 people in CAT scan, and that's where he is. And so from there, already, I'm like, well, this isn't good. And they did exactly what I figured they do. They were taken to the OR, and I met anesthesiologist quickly, and he's like, yeah, we're going to the OR. So that's where he went next. And then from there, we just found out everything that happened, and I guess the piece that, and I actually wrote this in an article where I was like trying to promote donor connect and organ donation throughout Intermountain, is after he was in the OR for an hour and a half ish, 2 hours seemed like forever. The neurologist and his resident came out, and they told us that my husband's brain injury was non-survivable. And obviously when the resident is teary-eyed telling you, you're like, wow, that's a lot. And then ensue kid screams with that news that dad wasn't going to make it. And we weren't sure how quick he was going to pass that night. So one of my sisters I called, and she's like, listen, I will call everybody and let them know what's going on. And then I called my my husband's brother, and said, "Hey, you need to tell your parents and your younger brother, I can't tell you a lot right now. Obviously, this brain injury is non-survivable, and we don't know how long he's going to be here, but he is an organ donor, so we're going to see if he can make it through the night." And then the brother from Salida, at like 7 o'clock at night, jumps in the car and drives, continues to drive here until, he arrived at
It's
like,
a long drive.
it is until he got here at like 4, almost 30 in the morning. And thankfully, Will hung on until that time, and he made it through um, until probably about 6 o'clock, which was the goal. And then they were going to extubate him and, just let him pass on his own, and then take him straight to the OR to procure organs. So,
Is there a point before they came out and said this was non-survivable that you either had a gut feeling that he wouldn't survive or that your medical brain kind of was putting some pieces together, or did you just wait for the data?
no, you're right. I had a sickening feeling that that was going to be the situation. And because it was so that he went from, again, medical knowledge can be a blessing and a curse. So I knew that when they were taking him from said spot, and I seen him, luckily, as they, were taking him to the OR, and I got to do a one over of his whole body and seen no other injuries at all. So it was all the poor guy's noggin that took the brunt of the fall. And he was a 6'3", probably 190 pound man. So I mean that's a big fall. But yeah, no, I had a gut feeling that it was bad.
When my dad fell and broke his neck, Anita came to the hospital and she's like, she was with us when the doctor came out and said some things, and she goes, "Do you want me to tell you what that means, or do you want to pretend it's not happening?" I'm like, "Give me the information." And it was like, even though it was so horrible, it was also like good to know like factually what was happening. Like being a nurse, you have to keep your emotions in check and you have to process things a certain way. Was that quote helpful for you in this scenario? Because it's your husband, you have kids there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, you just hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think because I've seen so many crappy things in the ER through my years in the emergency department, we kind of file them, right? And by filing, it is a protective place to go for a bit. Because when the doctor told me that he was not gonna, initially right after the OR, that he wasn't going to make it, and his brain injury was non-survivable, immediately I went to, okay, what do we need to do to procure his organs? He's a donor. That answers your question, doesn't it? And then
Hmm.
we dealt with my kids. I
Later.
dealt with my kids. I mean, that
Yeah.
that piece was checkbox. Okay, these are things that we've talked about. We've always had a very open communication about this too, because of the fact that I'm a nurse, and he was a high risk.
Rapper.
Exactly, rapper. He did things like in Colorado, he kayaked that crappy river, and he would kayak those crappy rivers up higher by Buena Vista and Leadville, where the class of those rapids are gnarly. And so he was a high risk taker. So I kind of knew, and we had those conversations because of that. Before we came here, I was actually contemplating going to be a flight nurse in Durango. And I told him on point blank, I'm like, there's one high risk person in our household already. It can't be me. I've got to be the reasonable one. And so, yeah.
That ended up happening.
Mhm.
I have another question, and it's actually like more of a flight nurse, flight crew question. I don't know if you know the answer. And if this is a dumb question, sorry. I know that people might be thinking of this too. When your person is with the flight crew in live flight, is there somebody like one of the medical professionals that's talking to the hospital on the ground and updating the health information, or are they just like, we're coming in for the landing and the crew is working on the person? Do you know how that works?
Typically speaking, yeah, there is communication because that flight crew is letting them know when their ETA is going to be. You let them know when the patient was picked up and give them a basic ETA. But as they get closer, they do want to update them with, patient condition. whether that's deteriorating or improving, to give that hospital, they're in the hospital on the emergency department side, we level traumas. So in essence, my poor husband was the level 1, which is a very high. He needs resources right away. And we need ancillary staff, lab. We need radiology. We need trauma doctor. We need regular ER doctor. We need X many nurses, tech. We need, all these extra radiology resources as well. Like, he got precedence on a CAT scan. If there was another CAT scan waiting in any place of that hospital, he was going there first.
We interviewed so many people, and it doesn't matter, how many times you hear these scary, horrifying things. It's like you feel it and really feel for the people that have gone through it. And then also picturing the professionals working around that, because again, you're a nurse, so you've been around people who have not made it and have watched other people lose family members.
Again.
So it's this extra like 3D, 10D picture. I don't know.
It hits you a little more viscerally. Like I said, I have seen people who have lost their family members walk out, and I see that face, and I know what that's got to be feeling like when you do. And you know what? I put on those other shoes and actually felt it this time, right? It's easy to be sympathetic to somebody who, just lost a loved one, whether it was a heart attack or a trauma or a car crash or whatever, but to be able to empathize and say, ooh, wow, that sucks. I can feel it. It hurts. Yeah. And not to mention, like, to see, I see what you people who have lost somebody see when you walk out of the emergency department. People don't necessarily always want to make eye contact with you. And I felt that day. I was like, holy cow, I feel like you're empty, but then people can't, they got to go on with that next patient, right? So it's super tough to be able to see what we do, and then on the opposite side, how it feels to, be in those shoes.
It's really interesting you just telling your story. I don't know if this happens to you, Mel, because you didn't have, you didn't go to the emergency room or whatever, but when people tell these stories, like, you feel a little baby, the same baby react, like a little piece of the reaction that you felt when you went through that. Like when I went to the emergency room, and it's like kind of this, this stomach tightening, kind of flushed feeling. And it's visceral is the right word for it. And it's kind of strange.
Anita, I hear we have a store.
Oh, we sure do. We've actually had it for quite a while. It's called the Snarky Grief Shop, and it's where you will find all of our best grief merch. That is, yes, a little snarky. For instance, it's where you will find the official widow card that you can pull and use at your convenience.
You can put it in your wallet, and anytime you need to use it, pull it out, play the widow card.
Yeah, we have glow-in-the-dark stickers. We have shirts that say, "Be nice, my husband is dead." We also have the ones that are not quite as jarring, so that you can wear them out in public and not feel weird. But sometimes you need that shirt.
I wear my "Be nice, my husband is dead" to bed because I'm a little scared to go in public with it. But you've worn it on airplanes before with your kids.
Yeah, every time we go to the airport, I wear that shirt because I'm just like, listen, I got to get all these kids through security. Just be nice to me. Thank you so much. And it's worked for the most part.
Some of the less snarky grief shirts are podcast shirts or Widow Wives Club. We also have Resilient AF, right, Anita? What else we got in there?
Yeah, which we're telling everybody who cares, like Mel's mom, that means American fork, because she can't know what it really means, guys.
Yeah.
Stickers and mugs and notebooks and just cool stuff that you can use to express your snarky grief. You'll find it by going to our website, shop.widowwedonow.com. There's a lot of W's in there, so just make sure that you've counted them and there's the right number.
We will link to that in the show notes, and it's also in our app, which you can get from the App Store. Can people get it from our regular website too?
Yes, if you go to widowwedonow.com, there's a link for the shop in there too.
Great. If you'd like to show your snark or have something a little more subtle, go ahead and check that out. Again, that's
shop.widowwedonow.com.
I feel it like when Jen, when you told what it was like for you to get the phone call, because like Anita said, Scott was out of state where he died. I got a text, first of all, about it, and then I was on the phone. And so that part definitely gives me a reaction. And then with my dad, like I said, also he fell, and so we did get to say goodbye to his body. And so it's kind of like this amalgam of the husband death and the dad death. And the dad death, yeah, is hard, but the husband death is so your entire everything ever. And so I feel like for me, it gave me a little bit more of a glimpse of a little bit maybe what it's like for you all that have lost the person and been there and seen their body. But yeah, for it was like fake for me for Scott because I didn't see it, but then I saw him. But
Either way, not fun.
do you guys remember leaving the hospital, all of you, when it was over? Because isn't it the weirdest feeling? It's almost like, well, the movie's over and you walk out and life goes on, but you're like, that wasn't a movie.
Yeah, you have to go somewhere. Like you have to leave.
Okay, what do I do? Do I go to the store? What do I do? What did you do, Jen? What did you do next?
Wow. And honestly, I think a couple of the other podcasts I listened to said the same thing. It's like you almost walk through a door and it's like, oh, normal life. But it's not, right? Everybody else is in their busy state of affairs and it's like we're all in our own little awkward private movie. Really, I remember the day. It was bright and early. I mean, we had just gone through. He we were with him for his final, and he was intubated, and you know pressors keeping his heart pumping well, and surviving. That's all he was doing. I mean, we were waiting for his time, and 12 hours, not even 12 hours later, it wasn't. Yeah, it was roughly by the time he got out of the OR to 6 o'clock in the morning. We were hopeful that, he would make it until his brother got there, and he did. And honestly, I feel like there's a piece of all of us when it comes to be our time that where do we love the most? My husband was a morning person. He we would be up early and we would be out the door bike riding at 7 o'clock if we could, right? But he was a morning person. So it made sense that his time came when the sun came up. So it was wonderful that we walked out and the sun had come up and it was a beautiful morning, right? By then we were all so tired emotionally, physically, and we came home and I think slept for probably, or tried to sleep for probably about 4 or 5 hours, maybe. But we know that that doesn't happen. And that didn't happen very well anyway, because there's so many questions that kids had. And, we're all just trying to figure out, it was numb, super numb, right? We came home and just did, I guess.
Yeah. So I have a question because I feel a kinship with you in a way, but you guys are way cooler than us. But when when Jason was alive, it was always planning for the next adventure. It was what fun thing are we going to do? Where are we going to go camping? Where are we going to do these things? And I felt like that part of my life was done, like absolutely done. And I could never, ever imagine doing anything like that again. Did you feel the same way? Or were you still like, we're still going to do all of the things that we would have done without Will?
It was a mix. It was a mix. I mean, um, I came from, my parents were divorced when I was young, so I didn't have a great, male, um, role model or male person like that in my life until I met my husband. And then that is where I started doing all that fun stuff like camping and more biking because I had done some like sprint tries and stuff before me and my husband had met. But that's when we got really serious about it, right? That's where he bought me a new bike and we had fun. But that is where we drove to other places before kids were born and had a good time. So I agree with you in a way. And what we had bought a trailer, like a bumper pull trailer, like the year or so before, we had upgraded. We had had a pop-up trailer, and then, we decided, hey, you know what? We're really enjoying this. Why don't we buy a camper trailer? So we bought like a 20-foot camper trailer, and we had like a Pathfinder, a Nissan Pathfinder that we were going to pull it with, right? And that is where for a minute, what you just said hit because he was the driver of our raft trailer. He was the driver of this, and he was the backer upper. And there's some kind of dude kind of skills
The
that relate
backer
to
upper
that,
is
right?
serious. That's a
It
serious
is.
job.
It
This is
is.
Anita. Jen, I got a trailer after being a widow because I was like, I want to do this thing. And I've been trying to get Anita to do it. She won't even go with me, even if I'm like, I promise I'll back it up. Look at her
It's because
face.
of the backing up. It's
Backer.
I have I have long trauma from backing things up, you guys.
This is real. Well, it sounds like Jen can empathize with you.
I can. I sucked at it, dude. And so, you know what? It was a point in my life where I was like, that flip switched, right? I'm like, okay, two things. In order to continue doing us, which was always my husband in my conversations, which was ironic because we had those conversations. And I swear, one of our talks on our walk with the dogs or bike rides was, you know, Jen, if one of us has to go, I would prefer it would be me because the kids need their mom, period. And so I look back and I'm like, what the hell kind of prediction was that?
They can do without a backer upper, but they do need a mom.
Right?
Man,
And so I hate that I had those conversations, but being a nurse, we had those conversations, man. And so our goal was whoever was the surviving parent, period, was that you pretty much get to retire and continue to do us and the things that we did as a family. So, with that being said, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Instead of a f***ing trailer, I sold it, okay? Because I suck at backing up, okay?
okay, both of you, you're coming with me in mine.
Okay. And so I upgraded that for a van, of which,
Oh,
I figured that, with the van, it's a pop-up one, so we can do us still in the van. My son sleeps in the top, and me and my daughter sleep on the little tiny extra size twin bed. He gets a dog up there, and I get a dog down here. And, we only do those for like shorter trips, right? But it gets us across the country, and that entails says it all. We do continue to do us. As a matter of fact, I tried to hit that with the pictures that I sent, because I think that is the kids might think it's not the funnest, but we only get to be with them for like a certain number of years. And then they're like, deuces. I'll see you guys around maybe once or twice, three times a year, maybe four times, five times a year. So I'm trying to hold on to everything that we can right now and do everything we can. Like in the past, this will be our third year. Addie's nationals for mountain biking have been across the country. So we have been gone for like almost the entire month of July, visiting family and visiting things that would have been bucket list trip for us as a family, of which I did have bucket list plans because me and Willen talked about them. But we've added across the past 3 years, we've added more to those bucket list trips. Yeah.
I am so curious. Why did he not wear a helmet?
Oh man, I don't know.
Do you even know? I mean,
Yeah,
I guess he's dead. You
yeah.
can't ask him, but
Actually, God, you know what's crazy is yeah, I mean, you guys might have felt your deceased's husband's spirit around you. For a long time, I know he went to my kids and he had showed up in their dreams, and it took a while for me, but I think it's because he thought that I was angry, and I always told him, I was like, listen, honey, this sucks. Here we are, but I can't be angry at you. I'm super sad you're gone because we had so many dreams and things to do with our kids. So never has there been an angry moment, but my kids told me that occasionally he would go on a skateboard without his helmet. If he would have had one kid with him, he probably would have had a helmet on. But I'm also a believer in there's a timestamp that we all have, and wherever your place is in line, what else would it have been that took him, right? I couldn't have had him with a traumatic brain injury and not being the same person he was because honestly, he would have been so pissed off at me.
Did you ever have this conversation? Because some of my friends, they've said this. They say, if I'm ever in that state, will you please put a pillow over my head? I'm like, no, because I would
And you'd
feel
go to jail. So.
murderous. But also they're like, but I wouldn't want to live. I'm like, okay, well, get a will or a whatever
Yeah,
the
yeah.
relative thing is.
No,
But
my husband had his dad had a stroke before right before me and my husband met, his dad had a huge stroke and he's still alive, but he is left with right arm and leg deficits and he can't speak well. And so he did point out the fact that if I ever have a situation like this, he goes, I'd rather die of a heart attack. I'd rather die of a massive quick car crash. I don't want to live like that.
Head injury.
If I can't do
yeah,
me, then and my quality of life isn't going to be good, then I don't want to be here. And so, yes, we did have those conversations, but was it ever on paper? No. No.
no, of
Mm-mm.
course not. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's how it
Yeah.
always goes, right? I have a question about the skateboard because that's one of the things that I
Mhm.
started 2 years ago. Not e-skateboards. I've heard of one wheels, but I didn't really know there were electric skateboards. Was it
Yeah,
one
it
with
looks like
four
your traditional
wheels?
skateboard. My son has one, as a matter of fact. My daughter, my son, and my husband had one. My son still has his. We turned around and gave the one that Will wrecked on to my brother-in-law, and he sold it on eBay. We wanted nothing to do
Mm,
with that here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Um,
man, then they go up to like 30
Yeah, they
miles
can. They're like an
plus
e-bike.
an
They're like an
hour.
e-bike that could probably, he was probably going 25 miles an
mhm.
hour. Yeah.
It's so, I mean, even you see skateboarders at the skate park where there's concrete
Even
and
that's
everything,
enough.
and it's all the warnings
Yeah.
at the skate park. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
like
Mhm.
there are so many things that could happen. You hit one little thing of
Yeah,
gravel and
yeah,
you're toast. And if
yeah,
you don't have protection on,
exactly, right?
so it's like this false sense of security. I don't know if it like if he was riding on
It was a
a rail
rail
trail,
paved, but
you might,
yeah,
yeah, you
yeah,
can still boom. Everyone,
Oh,
PSA
yeah.
for
so
helmets. Anita has done a
this is
whole
ironic
segment on
because
it.
I came to that class and you told me about Will, and like the next week was my son's birthday, and guess what he got for his birthday?
Oh,
He
the
got a
skateboard.
he got a one wheel for his birthday,
Oh,
which is like
okay.
an electric
Yeah,
skateboard.
yeah. We see
You
them
gonna tell me
everywhere.
this?
Okay, but this was the conversation we had. I use the podcast to my dastardly mothering needs, and I say things like, "I know somebody who died from this," and I was like, "You will wear your helmet if your feet are on that board. I don't care if it's in the driveway. I don't care if it's in the road. I don't care if it's in my house. You will have a helmet on, or you will lose it for 3 months." And like we had a very serious talk about it, and it's been funny because like my brother-in-law came over and my son's like, "Oh, you got to try this out." And I was like, "Put this helmet on," and they're like, "Oh no, I'm just going to try." And I'm like, "No, put this helmet on. Like you're going to put this helmet on." And so many of them have fallen over. And I'm like, "Aren't you glad I just told you to put that helmet on?" Because even when you think
Mhm.
you're just like demoing it or playing around with it in a, non-dangerous way. Anyway.
Right, right.
Oh,
And the rule that I like to go by is even if you think it's a low risk event that you're doing, there's always a high consequence to it, right? One of my buddies who, when I was in the emergency department, he was the trauma coordinator, which is he looks at all of that kind of data in the umbrella where my husband was, right? Car crashes, shootings, stabbings, bike wrecks, whatever, right? And anyway, he came over to our house when my husband was alive, and we had bought one of those hoverboards for my kids. And he is not near as athletic and does the same things we do, but he tried our hoverboard and I made him put on a helmet even in the house.
yep.
And he was down in like just as fast as he got on the hoverboard, right? So I agree with you. And actually we do a lot of promoting helmet use. We've tied in a lot with so many different people in Park City, and down in the city, down at the University of Utah. We're promoting helmet use, right? We're trying to, obviously our rule in the state of Utah is 18 years and older. You don't have to wear a helmet, okay? With biking or motorcycles or whatever, right? You make a choice. And so we're trying to, promote the opposite side of that, right? It only takes one time. If we did the same thing that happened to my husband, we reenacted his accident, even though we don't know the exactness of it, 10 times. There will be a couple broken clavicles, there'll be a broken wrist, there will be maybe a broken rib, then there'll be scrapes, but there will not be a repeat head injury to the extent of my husband's.
It's so hard because for kids, you get to tell them what to do. I mean, you don't, but you do. Like I get to say I'll take it away from you, but for adults, you don't get to do that. So they get to make their own choices, and then you get to live with
Exactly.
the consequences of those choices. Hooray!
Yeah,
Um,
right.
you just kind of made mention of this, but what did you do? We all feel this desire to have their memory and to have their life have some sort of continued meaning. How did you go about doing that for Will?
Well, that is a great question. Being you kind of had a little, intro into that is after he passed, it was a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 months that passed. And one of my buddies who was kind of close to our family was like, "Man, Jen, what do you want to do now?" And so I was like, well, I definitely, I feel there's value in continuing to spread the word and teach people because there's so many things that we use helmets for when we're outdoors playing, right? It fits a lot of these sporting events that happen outside. Um, so we decided to, at the time, make a foundation. And so I was like, how can we? I reached out to my siblings, a couple of my siblings that we're pretty close to, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about this. How can we involve Will's name and make that an acronym for something cool to promote, safety as a nurse? How can we teach other people and empower other people to feel confident to step into, like the guy that stopped and helped him that day. And really he just, stopped, but he stopped and he couldn't be missed. He was on the rail trail, but he stopped. There were several people that, protected him from the sun until EMS got there. So somebody stopped, hung with him until EMS got there, right? And that was probably pretty quick fashion because we have a lot of EMS fire stations up here, right? So anyway, my goal was, okay, this is important. How can we help not just mountain bike coaches because there was a need for mountain bike coaches to have an extra level of education too beyond just first aid. So we're kind of looking at a cross first aid, advanced first aid, and then wilderness first aid. So how can we come in the center? Because guess what? 95% of the high school mountain bike coaches in the state of Utah, and we have a huge number of kids that mountain bike in the state of Utah, 7,000 to be exact. So with 7,000 kids riding bikes across the state of Utah, we need a lot of coaches too, because the rules are there's supposed to be two coaches to every six kids roughly, right? So with the different levels of coaching in the high school sports, some don't need much more than basic first aid, and some need a higher level of skills to take care of their kids on the trails when you're out there mountain biking, right? So the goal was we don't want to just teach coaches, but we also want to hit leaders of kids groups with this education. So we sat down and we talked to a couple people, and it just so happened that one of my people had contact at the University of Utah, and they were actually talking about how can we do this exact same step that Jen is talking about. And so we got together and talked about it, and we all felt the same as far as what education needed to happen. And then from there, we did all of the fun stuff with foundation things, right? We came up with a name and labeled it Wilderness Instruction for Outdoor Life Skills, and we kept the Wills in there, which is kind of a cool tribute to honor my husband and my kid's dad, because he truly would still be a piece of that with them, with the kids growing up. He would be involved in the mountain biking and athletics with the kids, right? He would love to be out there. And especially with my daughter, now that she's older and she's super fast and, you know, an amazing mountain biker, he would be right there and super proud of her. So I'm like, how can we continue to keep him in the mix? And we do with that. We have taught after this year. Will's Foundation was inaugurated in March of 2022. We taught classes that first year. After this year, we would have probably taught in the past 3 years at least 1,000 mountain bike coaches. And the beautiful thing about it is that's one piece of our foundation. With that, the stories that I have heard from coaches, the emails that I have received from coaches sharing their experiences and how what you've taught us, Jen, I wouldn't have had the confidence to help this person if it was not for me taking your class last year or whatever, right? Kid you not, I got an email, I think it was last December, from a coach who had taken my class in March of the same year. And he's like, Jen, here's the situation. I was skiing at one of the resorts with my daughter. We seen somebody go down. I did CPR on this guy. And then, a nurse came, an AED came, and EMS came, and they shocked him, and they continued taking care of him. But if I wouldn't have taken your class, I wouldn't have felt confident enough to go help this guy and do CPR on him. So, and this guy it had happened like a couple hours before, right? So he was still like all ramped up and excited to share this. So that is our goal, is to empower other people to take care of people in their time of need, right?
Is that the same class that you met Anita at? Was it for coaches, Anita?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes.
And you're a mountain bike coach for your son's mountain bike team, correct?
Correct.
Exactly.
You can count me as one of the people that you have taught. And I learned a lot of stuff. So it was really cool.
So it's pretty cool. So we do that piece, and then we also on the side, we've collaborated and partnered with some other places up here. Bingham Cyclery is one of them, Intermountain Hospital, and several other community places up here to help educate kids and teens with e-bike safety. So that's our next plug. We actually just did a pilot program
Ooh.
with the Youth Sports Alliance up here in Park City, to have teens take this online e-bike safety learning.
Ooh.
Thank you for this, because you see the e-bike stuff everywhere now on the roads. People are doing the thing where they don't wear a helmet. They're also like going as fast as cars. I know you said you just started a pilot program for that, but what are some of the concerns that you've seen that you're hoping to address?
I mean, that one of them, right? That's a piece, helmets, right? We know that once you're on a road, you're a vehicle. Okay, so you've got to be able to navigate and understand how I stay safe as a vehicle on the road. And I think that is a piece, that's one of the whys, is because the kids are younger than 15, and or they don't even have the learner's permit, right? So
Yeah.
they have no idea oh yeah, okay, I know what I need to do. No, you don't. What are those pointy shark's teeth things? Okay, where's the Sharo? How are you supposed to use your hand signals, right? So all of these things are incorporated in this online teen e-bike safety course. So it's super cool because it's a perfect precursor to a learner's permit. Talks about the signs, talks about navigating on the road.
And then they can teach the adults, because the adults are worse and they're dumb.
Man, there is a piece of bliss is ignorance sometimes, right? Our ignorance is bliss. Yeah, right?
Yeah, probably both. I have a question for you about rules, because I don't know if you have an electric vehicle like that, like a bike, if you come to a stop sign, do you have to stop like a car does? Or because everybody just rides through everything, but they're like, oh, I'm on a bike. Or at the skate park, there are electric bikes and scooters and electric everything's tiny kids even and adults, and they come, and it's actually electronic vehicles are not allowed in skate parks, but people come in and they ride them, and it's
Oh, man.
terrifying. So even if they are
Oh,
riding in there and they have
yikes.
helmets, you're still
Of
going to
course.
run over
Yeah.
people. So I know that that's kind of a big blob of
It's
electronic
really
stuff, but
complicated,
back to this.
actually, because there's different classes and different classes have different laws. So, and it's going to be different state to state to state. So,
You are 100% right. It's super convoluted
yeah.
because there has been this explosion of all the electric everything, right? And nobody's really setting the rules on there yet. But then again, there's on the opposite hand where there's just people who don't give a shit about the rules, right? I'm gonna do what I want, where I want,
Yeah.
and so there's some ignorance, but there's also rules out there that people are trying to do. I know that People for Bikes is a nonprofit out of Boulder, Colorado, and they have all of what you just said, Anita, was that they have every state by state of what the regulations are with e-bikes anyway. The whole e-scooters and whatnot are kind of another piece. But each said place has to set their own rules, and who's going to enforce them? That's the other piece, right?
Yes. That's my next thing. I have so many things about that because this just happened actually, and I know this is like I'm talking more about skate park stuff with this next piece, but here's another thing. Just because all of this has to do with there's wheels, there's electricity, there's brains and brain stems and spines, and there can be death, right? No
Mhm.
matter where you go. But in the skate park, there's people also bring electric
Oh
RC
yeah.
cars and they run
Oh,
them and then they cause accidents. But so, and that also counts as not, you shouldn't have that. But I was in Bountiful skating in Bountiful, and there was a mom with 6 kids in there, and she gave each of her kids, and people were skating all over, right? It was all of the features, so it wasn't like empty. And even still, like they shouldn't have been there, but there were 6 RC cars running around. Well, then there's kids
yeah.
dropping in on skateboards, and even if they have helmets, whatever, they're gonna
Yeah.
get hurt. And so I said, "Oh, it's hard because you don't know what to say, and the parks don't always
Exactly.
have a sign with the rules." And so I said, "Hey, did you know that actually there's no electronic anything here?" And she goes, "Well," and she was super nice. And she goes, "Oh, well, we come here all the time and no one said anything. That's a problem. There's nothing that's being enforced with
Exactly.
a lot of these places because
That's
you're in
hard.
the wilderness or you're at a skate park where the city there's
Right.
no sign, or if there is a sign, what do you do? Call the cops?"
Right. And
So
that's a lower on the
yeah,
spectrum, right? Because it's just, yeah, they shouldn't have these
yeah,
here. And the cops are like, oh, okay. And they're just going to go talk to them and say, hey, but they're not going to circle back to see if they come back again, right? It's like a one
Yeah.
time, just a warning kind of
no,
thing, right?
yeah. Meantime, someone could die.
It is super convoluted, right? There is some things that are changing, right? As a matter of fact, I think that the next thing on the docket might be the changing of those Sarans and Talarias or e-pro rides or, the electric motorcycles, which, initially I think they were trying to call them a level 3, class 3 e-bike, but they're not an e-bike because they don't have pedals. They have the pegs, and they're going to be called like e-auto cycles, I think, or something like that. So
See, Mel,
e-cycle.
you
Oh,
don't even know the hornet's
I've
nest that
not
you've
even
just
It
heard.
is
walked
a
into
hornet's
because
nest. It's a
you get
lot.
on like a mountain biker's page and there's a lot of angry, you know, like about different things. Can I go on a little diatribe about the e-bikes and the helmets? And I might, Jen, I might try and figure out how I can get you down here, like to do some of this to the kids around here because
Yeah.
um it's so strange to me. I feel like we've done a pretty good job as a society ingraining it in kids that when you go mountain biking, you're going to wear your
Wear a
helmet.
helmet. Exactly.
But we haven't figured out how to ingrain in them when it's possibly more dangerous. I'm going to ride my bike to school. I'm not going to wear my helmet because they're
Way
like,
more
well,
dangerous.
I'm a good bike rider. I'm not going to crash. I'm not jumping. I'm not doing any of these things. And I'm like, okay, but there are cars, right? Like, so the danger level is as high or higher. And then you
Hmm.
put them on an e-scooter, and because they think it's a casual activity,
Low risk.
they don't think that they need to wear a helmet. I'm like, that's way more dangerous than any of the other things. It's like we've stratified the risk in a strange, really strange way. And I'm like, you guys are not actually you're not actually accurately weighing the risk of the activity you're doing. If it has any sort of motor, you need a helmet on. If it has any sorts of wheels, you need a helmet on. Like, just, it's so strange to me.
I mean, you know, I mean, every year there are kids that pass away down in the city. A simple hoverboard goes wrong, nails your head, boom, dies the next day. B, kid falls off a horse because it gets spooked, throws the kid off. I mean, it's all those little things that seem like everyday things. Oh, it's casual. I'm just going to the mailbox, just gonna ride down to the post office. And it doesn't necessarily end up that way, right? Because we
Yeah.
don't, yeah, like you said, we don't quantify that this could equal this because it's a simple thing that we're doing,
Yeah, we're just
right?
running errands. We're not going for like an epic bike ride. So why would we need a helmet for errands? You know?
Exactly, right? And it honestly starts with us, right? As the parents, I say that,
Yes.
yet mine was the perfect example of who
Yeah.
did that, right? But grown ass man. So it's hard to say now forever. Like anytime my kids, like right after Will passed away, anytime they seen somebody without a helmet, they would like be angry. Even
Yeah.
me, like nowadays, I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus, why do you not have a damn helmet on, person? You know? So, and they're much better, but they got super frustrated for sure. And I'm like, baby, we can't control those. Now I got to tell myself that, baby, you can't control those. It's not that's a grown ass person. They can do what they want to do.
Yeah.
But kids are even tougher, right? Because you're like, hey, and my kids are always like, Mom, don't roll down that window. Don't say anything.
I do it.
And I'm
I yell at the kids in
like,
my neighborhood all the time. It's kind of become a joke. I'm like, "Where's your helmet?" And they're like, "Well, I'm like, there is no I'm just.
yeah,
There's no I'm
I've
just."
like I would, but there's a couple of parents, dads that were on e-bikes, and I pulled over one day and I was like, dude, where the hell is your helmet? We are the poster children of our neighborhood, okay? So please put on your damn helmet. And then they're like, sorry, Jen, you
Yes.
know? So they feel like they've been scolded, right? So yeah, we do it. And one of my lovely neighbors next door, her and her husband rode out around on e-bikes all the time. And I'm like, could you just please get a helmet? You're going, I don't care where you're going. Just put a damn helmet on, okay? And now they carry them. I'm
Oh,
like, okay, put it on your head.
that's so funny. Like, what? I have it on my handlebars.
Yeah, that's kids all the time. I'm like, hey, that fits on your head way snugger than bouncing around on your handlebars. I'm sure your parents would really like that up here and not there.
Yeah. Well, the good news is if it's on your handlebars, if you were to crash, maybe you could like fall in a way that you could get your head in the helmet
Right.
before it hits
Before
the
you hit the
ground.
ground.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Here's something that is interesting too. Anita and I went to Sweden a couple of years ago, and they have the Lime scooters there, but they put a helmet with them. And then you see the same Lime scooters in the cities here. No, nothing like that.
They had helmets in Australia too, Mel, when we
Yeah.
were there.
And were they on the bike or
Mm-hmm.
okay, so I think it was the UK someplace. They actually like lockers that are by the bikes. And when you put it in, they're UV, so they kind of clean them when you put them
Oh,
back in the thing.
that's nice.
California has the seats, the helmets are in the seat. And so they have liners in them that you just take that liner off, and it's got like 20 liners in it or something, maybe 10, but new fresh helmet, right? Ish. But these here, so in the past couple of years, like specifically up here in Park City, I worked with Summit Bike Share on they're the bikes that are just, you can rent for 30 minutes for free or buy a membership or whatever. And me and one of the guys that ran that program actually went and spoke to some a style of helmet or a brand of helmets, and he bought a whole bunch, got a grant for them, and then gave them out. We had some different events where they would give out helmets to people, and there are cheap helmets, cheap because they were received on a good deal, but they're really high quality helmets. And then we went through and talked to some of the local bike shops. This guy did, and tried to get them to set aside like 5 helmets where somebody who rented that bike could pull up the app and be like, oh, if I want a helmet, I could go to this place and get a helmet for free. And then I just return it to another place when I'm done. So we're definitely trying to figure out best ways to do that because you can't change the style of bikes that they have now.
Hmm.
And if you put out helmets, then people are gonna, where are you gonna store them, right? The only concerning thing is that when you have those kind of helmets in the seat, you don't know if somebody wrecked on them or the damage that could potentially be done to those helmets, right? That's the only bad thing about that. Where if they're in a shop, at least they can test and look at the quality and see if they've been dinged up or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother ball of wax. I agree with you. But when you go to other countries also, there might be places that don't even have helmets, like, scooter places or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's always fun to see too. But like in some other countries, though, they go riding everywhere anyway, and it's like a no-brainer that they don't use helmets.
Yeah. The incidence of head injuries
Yeah.
have gone up significantly, and the severity of them since the invention or the widespread nature of the kind of rental e-scooter. So,
100%. And that's funny because me and my husband first bought our e-bikes or rad wagons in 2017.
oh,
And so being in the emergency department, I knew all those statistics and stuff, right? And since then they've exploded and they can't separate e-bikes from mountain bikes, from road bikes, from skateboards, from electric skateboards, from one wheel to a hoverboard to a horse. You can't break up the
one of these things is not like the other.
but they're
Small
but
cow.
they're but they're all fit into the umbrella of pedestrian conveyance vehicle, right? So it's interesting to know that that's where they fit, but you just can't separate those things yet. So you can't tell also with a brain injury. Just because somebody has a severe brain injury, we don't capture how, okay, that was fatal. Boom, great. My husband was one of the seven fatal injuries to that whole umbrella that year, right? But you don't know how many lives have been changed because now that person can't do their normal job. They can't provide to their family like they did,
Yeah.
right? So it's all interesting for sure. And yeah, will we ever get there? Probably not because it's ever evolving, all of it, right?
Yeah. And then aliens are gonna come and like eat our brains or something anyway. So we won't have to worry about it.
So we'll continue to plug away, and I've got things that I won't talk about that we're actually involved in and trying to promote along those still ta that same topic. So more to come.
Where can people find out more about the Wills Foundation?
Ooh, I love it. Thank you for asking that. Actually, they can go to www.wills, W-I-L-S, foundation.org and kind of see all the cool stuff that we do, some of the fun Willapalooza memorial bike rides that we hold in honor of my husband. We do it every year on June 19th this year is when we do it. And basically what it is I'm working on getting the registration up basically, but it's close to free to free. I mean, we our team up here because my daughter was like a eighth grader the year my husband passed away. Our team has supported it. So it's like a practice day for us. So we come to close to where we live in our neighborhood picnic area park and we do a bike ride. And it's for anybody who wants to come. It's super cool. And then after the bike ride, we do a kids ride, which is, sub little kids. So it's only like a mile and a half. And then the big kid ride is like somewhere between 9 to 12 miles. And then afterwards, we come back here. There's food trucks here, there's music here, and we do a raffle and give away cool stuff.
We will link to that in the show notes, Jen. And for anybody interested in Jen's foundation and the event, and of course, food trucks, please check
It's
out the
always
link.
fun. It's a good way to do what my husband liked to do, which is, empower others to come out and ride and have fun with people. And that's all
Wearing
it
a
is,
helmet.
right?
Yes.
Wearing a helmet and exercising. It's not, that's when we all like lower expectations, except for the high school team. And we just chill, like, and ride easy. And I won't even get to ride this year. Suck.
You guys can't see it, but Jen broke her arm. So
Her arm's been up at 90 degrees the whole time.
My fingers are tingly. This is like day
uh,
number 5, and so the fracture's up here, but
she needs
it's
to
like
check her
stuck
CSM.
up here. Exactly. I do that constantly.
That was something that I learned in her class.
Hey, what is super cute, Anita, though, is you're gonna love it. My boy, my 14-year-old son, he was with me when this happened, and he took care of me. He was a sweetheart. He put a splint on me and everything. So he paid attention to all that we've educated.
That's so good. He's like, I know what to do.
Yeah, he's like, "Where's your stuff, Mom? Where's an ace wrap? I don't see an ace wrap." I'm like, "That Curlex, baby, that'll work. Let's
That's
get
gonna
that and
that's
keep it
gonna do
on."
it. Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah. So it was great.
Jen, will you take me river rafting one day? Please and thank you.
Shit, yeah.
Okay. And
It's fun.
I'll watch your Vishlas for you.
Mel will back up the trailer and then
I love it.
and then we'll go river rafting.
Jen, what is your favorite cheese?
Oh man, I am a simpleton. I
No, you're
mean,
not.
you're right. But as far as cheese, like I'll just eat your basic shredded Mexican blend.
Cheese blend.
Yeah, that you make quesadillas out of, dude.
Yeah.
And if we don't have like Colby Jack
Mm.
for a freaking grilled cheese, dude, I'm putting that shit on the panini press to make a grilled cheese sandwich.
Okay.
There.
That's perfectly acceptable.
Absolutely.
I have this coworker and we've been making fun of her because she's like, I don't even own a shredder. I just buy the cheese pre-shredded. And we're like, you can't even be an adult if you don't own an implement to shred cheese. She's like, why
We
would I
have
shred cheese?
shredders. We have shredders. I just don't buy the block and that big of a
No,
piece, right?
Well,
it
too
really
much
is.
effort.
It is easier to pay for it already shredded, guys. I
Yeah.
mean, especially, and it's convenient.
Yes, yes. Well, Jen,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your story and teaching people all the good stuff. So we appreciate that.
Absolutely, ladies.
If you guys would like to keep the podcast going, will you check out our Patreon? It's patreon.com/WWDN.
If you'd like to buy us tacos with or without shredded cheese, please go to
With
buymeacoffee.com/widow we do now.
and always we like a nice rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Until we get to talk to you again, I'm Anita.
I'm Mel.
I'm Jen.
And we are just two young widows and one, the wife of Will, the white mechanical engineer rapper. And we are all just trying to figure out widow
We
do.
now.
Mel,
Yeah,
we have a major announcement to make.
go for it.
Did you know that right now all plans on Mint Mobile are what?
$15 a month.
Okay, that's truly ridiculous. Do you know how much regular cell phones are?
Yep.
$1 bazillion a month. 15 is less than that.
New customers get 3 months of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month if you sign up right now. And guess what? I use it. I love it. I've used it all over the country, all over the world, and it's great. And if you're wondering about phones, they have those available as well, or you can just port your own number and your current phone over to Mint Mobile. They make it so easy.
So if people are interested in trying out Mint Mobile, how can they go about doing that?
Go to trymintmobile.com/WWDN. And you know, it's interesting. When my dad died, we actually put his phone on a Mint Mobile plan because it kept his number going, but it was $15 a month. So there you go. And there's different storage plans, but you might as well just get the unlimited because it's $15 a month.
Absolutely. All right, go try it today.
That's trymintmobile.com/WWDN.